Welcome everyone to our March Cabinet meeting. A special welcome to members of the Hackney Young Futures Commission and youth parliamentarians. We've got the leader of the Green Party with us. We've got representatives of the motorcycle campaign and a member of the public asking questions. So quite an active evening of local democracy. I know there were some colleagues and officers also joining remotely. As usual, only those that are in the council chamber will be counted as present. The meeting's being live streamed and recorded. This is, though, obviously a physical cabinet meeting, and the decisions will be published after the meeting. I don't think there are any other announcements from yourselves. No, please, obviously through me, as chair, if you're speaking in the chamber, I'll also, as I say, have logged into the virtual meeting. So please do put your hands up. I'm not going to move any agenda items around this evening because we've got such a packed agenda, and each agenda item that colleagues have joined us to take part in are as important as the others. I'm not going to do any formal opening because of the packed agenda. Do we have any apologies for absence? No. I know that we've got both male advisors joining us remotely. So there are two late items of urgent business, so they'll be dealt with under item 19 below, and there's also an exempt item 23. We'll explain the urgency of those items and some of the changes to the papers as we get to them. Are there any declarations of interest that aren't already recorded? Councillor Fajana Thomas.
Oh, thanks very much, Mayor. I'm not too sure if we need to declare interest as part of the new, the late talking about leaseholder, just to register that as a leaseholder in the borough.
Yeah, I think that's recorded, but worth also recognising. Does anyone else want to declare that they're a leaseholder?
Yes, Chair. I'd also declare that I'm a leaseholder as well.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, Councillor Mackenzie is a leaseholder as well, if and when he joins. Not council leaseholder though. So it is Councillor Williams. I think you are though. By certain, yes. Councillor Copeland and Councillor John Thomas are council leaseholders, as is Councillor Mackenzie. That is already recorded in their declarations, but it's useful given the additional agenda item.
Chair, if I may also, appreciate I'm joining remotely, but I'm also a council leaseholder.
Thank you. That's Councillor Ema. I'm taking the advice that because that is such a uniform, it's like being a council taxpayer. Is that okay, Dawn, that we're okay to kind of proceed with people in the chamber? Excellent. There's no notice or intent to conduct business in private beyond the exempt items under 4. So then I'm going to invite Mr. Stocks, who has submitted questions, to come under agenda item 5.
Oh, should sit there, should I? Thank you very much indeed. I think you know what it's all about. So my first question, and I've got a supplementary. Could you please confirm that there was a contractual obligation on JCDecaux to remove commercial hoardings from the footways in Hackney, and with the contract terminating at the end of February this year?
Thank you, Mr. Stocks. I'm going to ask Councillor Kennedy to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the contract terminated at the end of February this year, and we have written already to JC&Co, reminding them of those contractual obligations to remove the hoardings, but also, Chair, asking them to liaise with the new provider to minimise disruption to the public.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Mr. Stocks.
Thank you. Mayor, you'll know that the core principle of planning decision making is consistency. Since LP 33 was adopted, there have been 40 applications for similar commercial advertising hoardings in this borough. Every one of those of 38 where the decision has been refused by the planning service. The only one to be appealed was dismissed by the planning inspectorate. Some have objections from TfL, some from your own traffic and transport department. Can you tell me what you think Hackney's Council's policy might be towards commercial advertising screens on the footway?
Thank you, Mr. Stocks. Again, I'm going to refer you to Councillor Kennedy.
So the major group, as a policy, when Mr. Stocks was a part of that group, decided that we did have too many of those provided hoardings on the footway at over 50, but that it might be opportune for us to keep some of those, a smaller number, but that we should work with our planning department, which is what we did. We worked through the PPA, looking at all our policies, and that is why when the new contract for advertising hoardings was approved at the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee on the 16th of January of this year, it was done so on the basis of that pre-work that we had already done. These papers are all available on the council website, but there is the paper for that meeting was key decision CED S154. It dealt with that matter, and it included at Appendix 3 a report which was entitled Advert Pre-Application Report, and it listed the over 30 sites that we had looked at in conjunction with our planning department that we think are suitable for replacement hoardings or resituated hoardings. That's Appendix 3 it's called the Advert Pre-Application Report, and I'll provide in writing the number of that report. But as I say, it's on the council's website. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Thank you, Mr. Stocks. So we're now moving into the minutes of the previous meeting of Cabinet on the 27th of February. Happy to approve those minutes. Agreed. Thank you. And then I'll just hand over to Councillor Chapman for the minutes of CPIC. Yeah, we're happy to agree those. Agreed. Thank you. So item 8. Item 8, we've got the petition on motorcycle and scooter charges. There have been public questions here at Cabinet and a petition that went to full council in November 2022. As we discussed when that came to full council, the decision around motorcycle and scooter charges rests with Cabinet, and council referred that petition to Cabinet. We have then had ongoing discussions with the various campaigners around the motorcycle and scooter parking charges, and there is a paper item 11 on the agenda this evening. So we will take the petition and the contribution from campaigners alongside item 11, which we will get to shortly. That was item 8. So that is where the petition will be addressed alongside the policy decision. So moving on to item 9, which is the capital update property disposals report. I did just want to highlight, and Councillor Woodley might want to come in, a very important investment in our special educational needs places in the borough that are included in the capital update. There was also further expansion and investment in our active travel work. And I did want to note for completeness that we are proposing to dispose of 2 schoolkeepers' houses, one at Queensbridge and one at Shoreditch Primary School, because there are no other uses for the council for those assets, and we want to use the capital receipts from those sales to invest in our further net zero work around decarbonising our schools estate. Beyond that, Councillor Woodley.
Thank you, Mayor, for drawing attention to this. It is a really significant moment, I think, for us to approve, I hope, funding towards an additional 93 places with an additional resource provision, but also within our special schools. This is an opportunity to extend that provision across early years, primary, secondary, and last year we also extended into sixth form. So looking at every stage of our children with additional needs and ensuring that they can stay in borough. There is nothing more heartbreaking actually than a parent coming to me and saying that they wanted to get their child into a particular school with a particular provision and that there just isn't enough room for them and they'll have to look elsewhere. So this 93 is on top of 74 previously agreed. That brings our investment to 5 million. If all goes ahead, if feasibility studies work out, we'll already be halfway towards our manifesto commitment of creating 300 new places. So it's a really significant moment. Thank you for highlighting it.
Thank you. And I did also want to highlight that it's an expansion as well in secondary schools with Stoke Newington and Bridge, which I think is, again, really important given the work that we're doing to build an inclusive secondary sector. Are we happy to agree the capital update report?
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Agreed. So item 10 is the OFP, Councillor Chapman, and then I think after you've introduced the report, I'll bring in Councillor Garbett, her question.
Thank you, Mayor. 3 items to bring to your attention tonight. I think the first one is to note the overall financial position of the council, which has shown a slight decrease in the overspend that we're predicting for the current year to 7.9 million, which demonstrates, I think, the heavy financial pressure that the council remained under, and also the work that the cabinet has put in, and also our chief officers in trying to keep that in really difficult circumstances, including running, high levels of inflation, which, as we can see from this month, are showing no sign of abating. Connected to that is we're recommending the approval increase in the price of hospital service charges from £6 to £9 a week. We very much regret having to do this, but again, the cost pressures on the service have been extreme. With essentially, biggest one obviously being fuel costs, but other costs. We remain, while that will move some way to helping us, with the deficit on that service, it'll still remain quite a lot to be funded, and I think the charges are sort of certainly lower or comparable to other boroughs. So, with regret, I recommend that to help balance our budget. And lastly, and ending on a high point, I'd like to report, Mayor, that we've been successful in our bid for funding from the Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Public Sector Decarbonisation Scheme, where we've been ordered 12.25 million towards decarbonising projects in the council. We'll have to put some 16-17 million of our own money into these schemes as well, but they're really, I want to congratulate all those involved in that successful bid, and that it's to really make a difference. And as you can see from the list of projects in section 213 of the reports, that will benefit some of the iconic buildings of the council, including this in sort of major energy efficiency and associated works. So with that, I commend the recommendations to the cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. A huge thank you to our energy and procurement team and the capital property teams for putting together what is a incredibly ambitious bid that was successful. Whether it's our leisure estate or our corporate buildings, I think it will be transformative in terms of enabling us to move forward on net zero, but also our energy resilience and the challenges of maintaining our buildings under a very tough inflationary environment. I think Councillor Coburn, you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I just wanted to very briefly add on this topic of subject, because I think without being at risk of repeating a lot of what's already been said, I think one of the great things that we've been able to demonstrate from this bid, and it's something that we've been working towards in the past couple of years, is making sure the council is ready to be able to tap into resources and some of the potential that exists out there. Because one of the things, you know, in the space of energy decarbonisation is that over the next couple of years, we hope that there'll be much more funding, or the government will actually at least match its rhetoric of what it talks about net zero energy strategy. And Hackney Light and Power and the energy team have done an incredible job to make sure that we have those, we're ready, and we've got those best case scenarios so that we're ready to move once those fundings does become available. And obviously this is going to be completely transformative for the borough, our public buildings. We've already done the solar program before on some of our public buildings like Lido, and hopefully, you know, this will be a huge contribution to our sort of road to net zero as we reach to 2030.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Thank you, Ma'am. To say, I know that it wasn't in this financial report. I had a foster carer approach me at the weekend while I was out doing a community event, and they thanked me, or thanked us rather, for the fact that we put in place that they do not have to pay council tax. So I wanted to relay that back. But I say that to say this: I think that same strength of feeling will be felt on this agenda, because as a local authority, we're not waiting until we deal with the cost of living crisis and all the challenges that people are dealing with and then think about the planet. We're actually dealing with the energy crisis. We're also dealing with the concerns of the planet while we're doing all the critical things our community need. And I think that's something to be kind of just echoed and championed and appreciated here. I think it's a bold ambition, but we're putting in place practical tools where the average person, no matter what they're going through, can make a difference to our, not just our community, but our wider planet. So just welcome the work that is led by yourself, Councillor Coburn, and officers and across cabinet portfolios. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bramble. And to build on what Councillor Chapman said, it's supplementary, and we had to recirculate the OFP because we had a very tight window to draw down this money, and it required cabinet approval to access the funding which we'd successfully bid for, which, you know, remarkable that you can wait ages for the announcement and then you have to do something like this, but it is good news. Councillor Garbett, I know you had a question.
Thank you. And yeah, just to add my huge congratulations on the PSDS, because I know from my work in the NHS that it's hugely competitive and sometimes comes down to the minutes of putting the application in when it opens. So yeah, that's brilliant. So yeah, one just small question just on the unspent budgets on non-essential expenditure in climate, health and economy, and just asking if, just for assurance that that will not lead to future loss in direct or indirect climate benefits. Thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and once again, thank you very much for bringing in this to attention that enable us to talk about the fantastic work that my colleague Councillor Coburn and his officers are doing in that department in tackling or making our contribution to tackling climate change and bringing about climate benefits. And indeed, in the agenda today, we've got a report about reduction in waste and increasing recycling, which shows a fantastic record the council's been able to achieve in this area, and the improvements we're going to make in this in the future. So I think it's an area which we're all very pleased with and very proud of, and I think we're making a real difference in London and across the wider country and hope the world. Yeah, that's no lack of ambition there, was there? You know, but in direct answer to your question, the answer is no.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. So we're noting the overall financial position, but also agreeing the recommendations. We're happy to agree and note. Thank you, colleagues. So as I suggested earlier, just bringing together item 8 and item 11. So I think Mr. Ben Pearson is here from the campaign. He has now 5 minutes to introduce the petition. After that, and any questions we have for him as the petitioner, will then take the introduction to the Cabinet report from Councillor Coban. There may be some debate on that, and then I think there is a question from Councillor Garbett before agreeing any recommendations or taking action. So over to you, Ben.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. You'll be wondering why we're here again. We're here because a former councillor had a personal dislike of motorcycles. He decided that the way to improve Hackney would be to ban motorcycles from parking with extortionate charges. The policy was proposed 4 years ago by this councillor, who believed that motorcycles were 16 times more polluting than cars. But the council now knows this isn't true. He said that motorcycles were taking away valuable curb space from residents. But motorcycles are residents who use a fraction of the space that cars do. He made offensive statements on social media, saying that motorcyclists were responsible for their own deaths on Hackney roads. This councillor's ill-informed, victim-blaming prejudice has been discredited, and yet his policy remains. The evidence used to justify the charges has been removed, the rationale has been changed, but the policy remains fundamentally the same. So where is the evidence? Where is the justification? The councillor here today had to stand up and defend his predecessor's policy, an unpopular, unworkable policy based on nothing but prejudice. He will tell you that the consultation on these charges received over 4,000 responses, but not that only 1 in 5 supported the policy. He'll tell you that these charges are intended to improve air quality and reduce climate change, but the council has still presented no evidence that the policy will achieve this. He will tell you that the council has worked with us to make changes, that they listened to our concerns. Frankly, this isn't true. The council has ignored our feedback. He will tell you that the charges are fair and affordable, but in fact, they're still 20 times higher than any of the other London boroughs that charge for motorcycle parking. He will tell you that the policy now allows commuting by motorcycle, but in reality, it only allows it in solar motorcycle bays, which are almost exclusively in just 2 of Hackney's 26 parking zones. Commuting is still banned in the vast majority of the borough. In even where all-day parking is allowed, a commuter will spend £2,300 a year on these proposed charges, including running costs. This will make a motorcycle more expensive than a National Rail season ticket, 5 times more expensive than a bus. These charges will ban commuting for all but the wealthiest riders, plunging thousands of low-paid riders into transport poverty or forcing them out of work in the borough. The Resolution Foundation estimates that the cost of living crisis has cost the average family £900 this year. Hackney Council now proposes to more than triple this for every household where one person uses a motorcycle to get to work. Is this the sort of council that Hackney wants to be? In reality, these charges will affect low-paid workers the most. They will allow commuting for the bankers on Old Street, but they will ban it for the barmaid on Mare Street. The council is saying to CEOs, you can carry on working in Hackney, but if you're the receptionist or the security guard, you can just get out. On top of this, the council has made no changes whatsoever to residents and business passes, because the council says they don't consider the size of a vehicle. And yet, even in the report, the council asks us to neatly park at 90 degrees to the curb at the end of the bay to save space for car users. But as a motorcyclist, if I'm being charged like a car, why shouldn't I park like a car? The council clearly recognises, when it suits them, that motorcycles are not cars. After we last addressed the council, the mayor promised to mitigate the devastating impact of these charges, recognising that motorcycles aren't cars and that we take up less space on the road. These changes reflect none of these promises. We told the council that motorcycles aren't cars, and the council hasn't listened. We told the council that riders can't afford thousands of pounds in a cost of living crisis, and the council hasn't listened. 8,000 riders have told the council that this policy is wrong, but the council hasn't listened. Officers may have told you that they've taken on board our concerns, but they've not. We have presented evidence, but it's been ignored. We engaged in good faith, but the council has simply wasted everyone's time. Motorcycles reduce congestion, pollution, CO2, and journey times. alongside other non-car.
1 minute, Ben.
They are part of a dynamic world of future transport. Motorcyclists are not a problem to be dealt with. They're your residents, your business owners, your workers. They have just as much right to be fairly represented by this council as anyone else. And so we ask you councillors today, listen to reason, listen to evidence, stand up for your constituents, and vote against these disproportionate charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you to colleague campaigners in the public gallery. Does anyone have any questions for Ben or any comments on the petition? No, I do, because Ben, you've said there have been no changes to the proposed charging regime or the methodology since the engagement and consultation 4 years ago, and no changes since you came to full council and the update paper here. So I'd like to sort of understand why you believe there are no changes in policy before us this evening. And also, if you accept that people that own powered two-wheelers should pay for a permit to park and commute in the borough.
Thank you. Personally, I do not believe that motorcyclists should pay for parking. There are great benefits to encouraging car users to switch to motorcycles. Now, I understand that many councils take an alternate view, and many councils in London charge a few pounds a day for motorcycle parking. Hackney's proposals started out at £60 a day, and now they've been reduced to £10 a day, and I acknowledge that. However, that's only for the subset of riders who commute into the high demand zones in central Hackney. In the vast majority of the borough, commuting is still banned. You said that you accepted that motorcycles were a legitimate commuting mode, and yet the proposals they've been put to cabinet don't reflect that acceptance. When I said that there have been no changes, there have been no changes to the permit prices, the resident and business permit prices. There is still no acceptance within those permit prices that motorcycles are not cars, that they take up less space. And yet still, within the report, in the very same section, motorcyclists are encouraged to park at 90 degrees to the curb to save space for car users. These proposals, as they've been put forward, initially they modelled a 90% reduction in motorcycle use in Hackney. Now they model a 70% reduction in motorcycle use in Hackney. You said that you wanted the charges to be affordable. Would that really be the case if these charges were affordable? Where is the council's policy to reduce car use by 70% in 3 years? These charges unfairly and irrationally target motorcyclists.
Thanks so much, Ben. Councillor Coburn, do you want to come in now, or do you want to come in as part of your introduction to the report?
I just had a quick clarification.
Yeah, okay, Councillor Coburn.
Did you just say that it will lead to a 70% reduction of scooter usage in Hackney?
That was the council's modelling, yes. They initially targeted a 90% reduction, and there was no basis or reason for that. But the council is clearly targeting motorcyclists in order to subsidise car parking for as much as I can see.
Thanks for confirming. I'm happy to come in as part of the response.
So we've heard the petition, and now ask Councillor Coburn to introduce the report, and then I will take Councillor Gold's questions. Councillor Coburn.
Firstly, thanks to Ben and the other motorcyclist campaign for being here with us tonight. It's obviously part of many meetings that we've had. We've met with yourselves and other campaigners more than any other road user group as part of these proposed changes. But as I said before, we recognise the importance that scooters, mopeds, powered two-wheelers play for Hackney's economy. But we also recognise that part of our contribution to the global warming comes from tailpipe emissions and poor air quality and particulate matter from exhaust emissions and brake and tyre wear. So Hackney is firmly committed to tackling the climate emergency and improving air quality, and that is why over the past decade we have changed for parking based upon tailpipe emissions with a surcharge for diesel vehicles as we work to reduce the levels of emissions produced by powered transport and reduce the number of miles driven on Hackney's roads. You mentioned, obviously, you spoke about our targets for reduction in car usage. our reduction targets are actually 30% by 2030 and 15% by 2026. And that's for all vehicles, and as we're trying to reduce traffic. We've obviously made great progress. You know, the number of permits issued to diesel vehicles has fallen by a third in the last 4 years alone. But the way that Hackney has historically managed motorcycle parking has not been in line with our goals. And, you know, as the Mayor asked you earlier, currently in its current form, there is no charging, which is partly the reason why we're moving to get a bit of equity and fair and balance into road users in Hackney. And to address this, obviously, we took detailed consultations on proposals in 2020 to introduce charging for motorbikes, scooters, and other forms of powered two-wheelers. And this formed part of a long-standing commitment to ensure that we have the right pricing incentives in place to encourage all motorists to choose active and sustainable travel over the use of private transport. Over 4,000 people responded to the consultation, which demonstrated the efforts we went to as a council to engage with the public on this issue. Since then, we continue to listen to your concerns. As I said, we met with you many times following your petition to full council last November, and we agreed to pause our plans and refer the decision back to Cabinet for further consideration on good faith. Since then, the Mayor and I and officers have met with you to try to look at different models in how we could take this forward. And as a result of these discussions, I mean, you say there haven't been any changes, but they've changed quite significantly. We've listened to your concerns that maximum stay restrictions would represent an effective ban on commuting by motorbike, and the plans put forward in Cabinet today now mean that motorcyclists who work in Hackney will be able to continue to riding and parking all day in Hackney. So that's a significant change. We also listened to your concerns about the level of charge for short stay parking in solar motorcycle bays. And as a result of these meetings that we've had, we've now reduced the prices by 80%. So you say there's no been changes, but 8% reduction is quite a significant change. We've also listened to your concerns about charges for electric powered two-wheelers, and our revised proposals will see bikes being charged 90% less than electric cars. Again, a significant change to our originally proposed charges. So, you know, to say that we haven't listened is totally disingenuous. We've had, as I said, more meetings with you, more than any other road user group in Hackney as part of these introductions. And obviously, the final thing is to say we're also phasing these charges over the next 3 years. So recognizing some of the impact that you spoke about, the cost of living crisis, we're trying to look at how we can make sure that we bring this in a fair and proportionate way. And some of the charges start from 6p an hour. And it is part of an emissions-based charging model. So when you do, one of the things that you obviously spoke about in your petition is you quote the very high end of motorcycles, whereas it's not recognizing that there are different bands in the emissions-based charging model. Not all motorcycles, actually, in fact, the majority of them will pay nowhere near 2,300 a year. So you failed to quote that as part of your introduction as well. But look, as I said, you know, we are committed to making sure that, you know, I know you're not supportive of our approach, but the principle of emissions-based charging is one that is helping reduce carbon dioxide emissions and improving air quality. And that's what this administration is committed to. It's what we went out on a manifesto, and we significantly won support from residents for. And we'll continue to do our best to help improve air quality and obviously help remove, you know, tailpipe emissions that stunt the lungs of our children.
Thank you, Councillor Cockburn. I did just have one question for you before bringing in Councillor Garbutt and perhaps Cabinet colleagues. Is the cost of living crisis was obviously mentioned by Ben and others in the debate. There is a phased introduction, is there not, to the wider permit system and the PEP? I just wondered if you wanted to explore that.
Yeah, so as part of the PEP, you're absolutely right, Mayor. So there's changes in addition to our existing commitment to phase in permit charges for over 3 years. So as part of the permit charges and the wider PEP and the wider permit charges, not just for motorcyclists, but for other road users, for cars as well, taking into account obviously the cost of living crisis, and a part of that extensive consultation that we had with residents, which had more than 8,000 people who participated, what we have agreed is to phase in those charges, and that was as a result of meetings with you know, campaigners like Ben, and also with other road user groups and with residents.
Thanks very much. I think all of us thank the officers that have been involved in this work and taken part in those meetings as well, not just in the last couple of months, but also more broadly. There is no right to reply, I'm afraid, Ben.
Point of order about some factual inaccuracy in the councillor's statement.
That isn't possible, I'm afraid.
Okay, if the council is going to be voting on this, they should be voting on the truth. And I'm afraid what the councillor said was untrue.
I don't accept that, so.
I'm happy to clarify on this
No,
particular
this
point.
is not Ben, it's not a dialogue. I'm really sorry. You
Okay.
get to present your petition.
The council
We
deserves
asked
the
you
truth.
questions. There was a right to reply. We've got the presentation. Councillor Garbett has a right to speak. No, nobody else does now in this section. Councillor Garbett.
Thank you, and thanks to Ben and the campaigners for bringing this with some clear points this evening. My questions are really to drill into the process of how Cabinet's making this decision. So I refer to two parts of the paper. So one is 1.3, and my question is, and some of the points that Councillor Coburn's mentioned this evening about the pause. So does this mean the administration acknowledges the initial proposals were unfair and unbalanced? And is there any recognition in Cabinet that the balance is still might not quite be addressed? And then the second question is on 1.4, and it's about how, in ensuring cheaper travel by public transport rather than the powered two-wheelers for most journeys, did the administration factor in costs to users of powered two-wheelers other than parking, so e.g. fuel, maintenance, insurance, tax, or was it already cheaper for most journeys when these were factored in? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garbett. I think, firstly, just to say, on the issue of the process of how we got here, I mean, I've obviously outlined the consultation process on how we got here. We had different stages of those consultation processes that go back to 4 years. But the other thing is, as well, is, you know, when we first heard from, we felt like those initial proposals were fair. But at the same time, you know, we're not a stubborn council. What we want to do is make sure that we're listening to residents and to campaigners and to those who have concerns. And we met with them many times, as I said, more than many other road user group in Hackney. And as a result of that, we've announced those 3 further changes which have come forward in this paper, which is obviously removing the proposed maximum stay period for visiting motorcyclists, so that riders who work in Hackney will be able to continue riding and parking all day, with discounts and prices for visitors, so that riders with electric motorbikes will reduce by 90%, and then normal bikes will 80%. And then phasing the approach over 3 years, the charge will be over 3 years. And I think, you know, questions back to you as well, Councillor Garbett. I think you've got to be, you know, like, you're, as a fellow environmentalist, you're obviously very supportive of an emissions-based charging model, as you said before as well. And obviously, as you move to an emissions-based charging model, and obviously as part of our commitment to tackling the climate change, means that it doesn't matter whether it's a 4-wheeler or 2-wheeler, ultimately any vehicle that pollutes have to be paying on a certain level of income. And what we've tried to do is obviously bring this in a way that is inconsistent with our climate goals and our transport strategy. But at the same time, you know, if you look at the lists, the changes that I've just listed to you now show that we're also willing to sort of make sure that we're helping support those who do need to ride, to phase it in and obviously help support them in that journey. So, you know, as I say, as a fellow environmentalist, I do hope that you agree with our approach.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Are there any other questions from Cabinet colleagues? No. Taking on board everything that we've heard, are we happy to agree the recommendations? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for Ben for attending. Thank you for the campaigners for attending. And you have improved the policy over the last 4 years, and we fully acknowledge that. It might not be where you want it, but we have heard you, and we have improved the policy based on those discussions and the consultation responses. Thank you.
Absolutely outrageous. He died. He wrote when I died. His dog sick to get out and I died.
Thank you very much for attending. I'll just pause for a second while residents and campaigners leave, and then we'll move on to item 12. Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Item 12, which is the reduction and recycling plan update.
Thank you, Mayor. And it's a very different topic now to talk about the council's recycling reduction plan. So for those of you who just to introduce the paper, so Hackney is required to put forward a recycling reduction plan to the GLA for approval. This is part of our performance target that we have to reach to help sort of contribute to sort of the overall effort across London to help reduce, you know, increase recycling and obviously try to sort of bring about change in terms of resident behaviour. We've obviously done a lot over the past year, both in terms of our sort of recycling infrastructure on our estates, what we've been doing across, our street level properties. We saw the impact of the fortnightly waste collection. That's obviously had a huge significant impact. But we also know that we face lots of challenges, particularly sort of with the downward trend in recycling performance, which has been seen across London and across the UK as well, for various reasons. And partly the reason for this is because we need government to move much more quicker on changing the legislation, whether it's with the deposit scheme or whether it's with the environmental bill, that can enable to give us the powers that we need to continue to do that. Nevertheless, having said that, it has been approved by the GLA on the technical point. They're obviously very pleased with our performance. What we're going to continue to do is obviously to work with residents to make sure that we bring about the recycling rates that we want to see in Hackney. But we've come a long way over the past, I think 10, 15 years ago, our recycling rates on estates were 1%, whereas now we're on about 19, 20%. So it's significantly sort of changed, and clearly it's having a huge impact. But other than that, the report is a set out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cockburn. Just a huge thank you to the officers involved in this work as well, and the Pan London work on food waste that I know Amanda and the team are also supporting within the context of London councils. I think, as you said, the policy environment is changing very rapidly, and there was a time when we were entirely focused on a broad recycling rate, which we have driven up through policies like fortnightly waste and other interventions, including on our estates. But also now it's much more about circular economy and waste reduction, and I think it's absolutely right to update our policies at this time, and that timely refocus. So thank you. Are we happy to, are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Cockburn.
Sorry, one thing that I should just add to this is the interaction that this will have with our, if you look at the draft climate action plan that came out and plans for around, like you mentioned, the circular economy, what we're looking to do is, we're hoping that's part of, our future efforts, that what we can do is actually, there's the bit about obviously recycling, which is really important, but then there's that fundamental bit, which is how do you get to a point where you reduce waste in the first place, and also help support businesses in some of the green just transition, in terms of making sure that they've got sort of the packaging that doesn't require to sort of be wasted in the first place, and creating that reuse. So there's going to be a lot more that's going to be coming out at this, and this is a very evolving piece. So we'll be seeing a lot more coming through to Cabinet around our efforts to sort of increase recycling.
Thanks very much, Councillor. And I did want to highlight 6.34, where we set out the numerous awards that have been won by the team for this work as well. Are we happy to agree the update? Agreed. Thank you very much, Councillor Cockburn. So item 13 is the Hackney Young Futures Commission report. Huge welcome to one of our original commissioners, Jermaine Jackman, who's arrived, but also the young people that are continuing that legacy of the Hackney Young Futures Commission report now. And we always knew there would be a baton passing moment, and it's going to take place very much in this room. I think Deputy Mayor Bramble is going to introduce the report. Councillor Joanna Thomas may touch on it, and then we'll hand over to the young leaders themselves. And I think young leaders is the important point, not young people, because it is about young leadership in the borough. And this is an incredibly important moment of bringing the report back to Cabinet. So Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville, and don't be too disappointed because you won't hear that much from me this evening before I hand over to the young people. I don't know if Councillor Joanna Thomas wanted to say a few words. Only to say that this piece of work was obviously your manifesto commitment that we all held really closely. I think back to the times that Councillor Woodley, Councillor Gordon joined us online with Jermaine chairing, hearing from young people about the direct impact of the things that mattered to them. And I can keep repeating that if you give young people a platform to talk about what matters to them, they don't just identify the issues, or tell you the concerns, they provide the solutions. And I think this is the most powerful piece of work to date that galvanizes children and young people and young leaders' voices, and the constant challenge from Jermaine and also Shakila around making sure that it's authentic for the voices of the young people that have come through. And it's a piece of work to be proud of, but not to be complacent. We have championed the voice of young people through the organisation to exactly make sure that we don't become complacent and keep us on track. So on that note, I'm going to ask Councillor John Thomas if she wanted to say a few words before I hand over to one of our young people.
Thanks, Councillor Bramble. I think just to add to what you just said, in particular to Mayor Phil Glanville, this work would not have happened if not because of his vision and his commitment and other members' commitment to the 2018 manifesto. So thank you for that and for giving our young people in the borough this opportunity. And I know the young people will still speak, but I just want to express thanks. I can see Jermaine is here now and Shakila, who were the co-chair of the commission that led to this legacy work. And in the last 1 year, I think we need to commend the work officers have done, Sylvia, Reese, Jason, and lately Maya, who joined the team. So thank you for your work. On my part, I've continued to make sure we've got 19 asks and 73 recommendations in this, and some of the asks, in particular, the ones that are closely linked to community safety, to young people, or perception of crime in the borough, and in particular around policing, negative policing in the borough. I've continued to monitor that. And this paper, I know colleagues have had the sight of it and the senior or leadership team as well. So it is encouraging that as a borough, we're embedding young voices into every area of the council. And it is a promise to you are here today that we will continue working with Councillor Bramble, the mayor, that we will continue, and other cabinet colleagues, because this is no longer the two of us. This is now embedding in all the areas of services in the borough, that we will continue that work. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. And I was just going to say, that
Just
was the
one
most,
second,
oh,
through
sorry.
the chair. Thank you, Councillor Jones. I did just want to highlight that legacy point about the previous team that worked on this during the development phase, how we kept it going during COVID. Shakila is another inspiration to us. And I know Reese can't be here tonight. Did you want to add something to Mayor Bramble?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just to pick up that legacy point, and you did it anyway, which is really critical. But it's the foundation of building the future. And although I haven't mentioned every individual cabinet member by name, I want to commend and thank them, because it's the work that they're doing within their portfolios, the one-to-ones that they're having. Actually, that is the strength of everything that we're doing. It really is. Councillor John Thomas and I have the privilege of leading it, but it's all of us together, and the work, you know, Caroline Selman isn't here, but was doing the work before, is critical. It's one of the proudest moments. I feel like, you know, I can't tell you the elation I'm feeling, because we facilitate the power of young people. When you see Jermaine alongside the literal futures, leaders of the future, this is why we put ourselves to be elected, and this is why I believe the public entrusted us to do what we do in this chamber. So on that note, Susan, and over to you, if that's okay, Chair.
Yep. Over to you, Susan.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, for inviting us here. It's an honour. So my name is Susan Astop. I am the young mayor of Hackney. I'm also the member of the Parliaments for Hackney, and I lead under education and youth participation. But most importantly today, I am a Hackney Young Futures legacy representative. The legacy work is all about working with services and collaborating with service leads on a corporate level as a team to ensure that young residents are embedded in service planning and service delivery. I personally joined Hackney Young Futures because I was previously involved with the Hackney Young Futures Commission over the pandemic, and I was a part of making the asks and recommendations. But also, I was elected as a Youth Parliament member, and as much as I have power there, Hackney Young Futures works on a deeper level with the council. I wanted to create change, and I created change through Hackney Youth Parliament, but I wanted it in a deeper level where I worked face to face with councillors, where I actually went into the meetings that councillors had, and I said what I wanted, what young people were thinking and all of our opinions over the borough. We've worked on many projects for the first year. So we've worked on a pilot project to trial mental health ambassadors for young people. We just recently met the borough commander. And as you know, many young people in Hackney are very interested in policing and crime within Hackney due to many reasons, one of them being the unfortunate case of Child Q. And it was a great opportunity to meet the new borough commander and to not scrutinize him, but even though it was the first meeting, but to make it sure that we are not scared of scrutinizing people in power, and we are not scared to show our opinions, and we are not scared to represent our young people. We'll be going into schools soon to gather insights about school experiences in Hackney as well, and we've done that previously. However, most importantly, in the next few months, we will be focusing on creating a sustainable approach for the council to permanently embed the voices of young people in all of the council's processes. That is service delivery, service planning, all of that, because we think that young people are also residents in Hackney, and we think that they also deserve to be heard. Hackney Young Futures is a great platform for us young people to embed our voices and to be listened to. So I really hope, personally, that the council will endorse us, as I have heard many comments and they're very nice so far. So I really hope that the council will endorse us and give us the scope to focus on the legacy of Hackney Young Futures. And I really hope that we continue this work because it's so important. And many of the young people that we speak to on a daily basis are so passionate about this work. So thanks so much for inviting us.
Thank you, Sudnez. Did any, that was a really packed, well, I think it's the second amazing speech you've given in the last year in the chamber at Cabinet. And I think it's excellent that we run the Hackney Youth Parliament work and the Hackney Young Futures, and that both have a powerful opportunity to address here as Cabinet, but also do that work in between. And re-endorsing the work of the Futures Commission was something that we were incredibly passionate about as Cabinet. It's also, I think there's something about making sure that we don't hold a process in aspect, that baton is passed. Today's issues, those emerging issues, they weren't there always in 2018. There were some great themes and real challenges for us as a local authority. Did any of your colleagues want to speak this evening at all? Because I'm always nervous if people are here and they want to sort of take to the floor. You're all good. It makes me I just wish we had a broad consensus around votes at 16, because I think you should be able to vote in the elections that elect us here as they do in Scotland. So one of the manifesto commitments we have is still votes for 16, and I think we should bring that front and centre of our discussions. I just wonder, as Jermaine has joined us, whether you, not to drown out the young people of today, but whether you had anything to say as one of those people that were so involved in the process from the start.
I'm just so proud to see it's in amazing hands, and it's not so much about what Shakila and I have done as chairs of the commissions, what you guys are going to do, taking it forward. And it's that legacy piece that's the most important piece. How do we keep our finger on the pulse with this, and how do we continuously capture the lived experiences of children and young people as the years go on? Some of the things that we captured in that report in 2018 are not the same challenges young people are facing in a post-pandemic Hackney. So how do we keep our finger on the pulse with that? But I'm so proud. I said I'm not going to speak, but here I am speaking. I'm so proud of you lot. I'm so proud.
Thank you. And normally this seat is occupied at full council, as I've said before, by Councillor Garcia. She was a contemporary, I think, more of Jermaine's. She came through Hackney Youth Parliament as an elected councillor and our speaker until May. And I also reflect on Shakila's own journey. Like, Jermaine's is stellar, but to have been a part of that process, to recommend that transformation around school governors and then to become chair of Stoke Newington, one of our maintained schools, I think is an absolute triumph. And I will never ever forget, as I said on Twitter, Shakila having to, from her sort of basement break room at London Underground, take part in those discussions with us through the pandemic, and making sure that this legacy continued all the way through and that we came through to this evening. Councillor Garbutt, I know you've got a couple of questions before we formalise our process here.
Thank you. And yeah, just adding my thanks to brilliant work. And we're really lucky to have such fantastic young leaders with us. I've only got one question, and it's probably focused to Councillor Cockburn, I think. Just around what young people want to answer, just in terms of the Hackney Young Futures involvement in the climate action plan, or the role that's intended to play going forward in terms of climate. Just a quick question.
Lots of hands. So do you want to come back, Councillor Cockburn? Okay, so Sidner's. Okay. Yeah, Councillor Cockburn. And then
Well, let me firstly start, to use this opportunity to also just say, also not to single out Sudanese as well, but to see a young Turkish woman sitting where you are and to give that speech, makes me very emotional, and honestly, genuinely, hopefully we can see you here with us soon in the future in Hackney as well. And obviously all of you, Jermaine, been good friends for too long. But I remember those pandemic conversations that we were having, in another hat, my other role with My Life, My Say. I remember also Shakila joining us from the London Underground, which was really inspirational, and to see it's got to this far. I mean, I speak with my other role with My Life, My Say, and I'm not just saying this because obviously it's Hackney, but this is the best case example of what youth engagement looks like. There are lots of different youth leadership boards and stuff that exist, neither without the financial backing nor without the sort of the buy-in of the organization. But I mean, I speak to my officers in sort of, whether it's in transport, whether it's in, the wider sustainability work we're doing, waste reduction, and they're always referencing what you're doing. So even if we haven't necessarily had a one-to-one engagement on a specific issue, even when we're talking about, the future, how we've improved air quality and how do we get low traffic neighborhoods right, or this, or whatever it is, they're constantly referring to what you're doing. And that's really important, because if you've managed to get it into sort of the day-to-day thinking of the officers to really think through what they're doing, that's the sort of cultural change that we're going to need to really bring about, a Hackney that actually works for young people in Hackney. And we've had so much change in our borough in the last 20 years. It's so difficult to be able to live here, to afford to be able to rent, to be able to own a home, because of the challenges that we're facing across the country and in the wider London. And, we want to make sure, and that's why this is really important, that it works for people who look and sound like you, who are from Hackney, and obviously we want people to come here and obviously enjoy the benefits. But ultimately, if it's not going to work for local people, then why are we here in this chamber? So to see you, to see Jermaine, to see all of you here talking, it just genuinely makes me, it remembers why I got into politics in the first place. And then, Councillor Garbutt, to come in specifically to your question, absolutely, young people are very much, it's what I really want to push on is how we make sure that young people are very much at the heart of what we're doing, the climate action plan. I know that as part of the draft of the climate action plan, there was a lot of learning taken from the recommendations and obviously the work and the findings that came out of the Young Futures Commission. The climate action, what I'm hoping to do, and it'll be great happy to commit to it now, and I really want to work with you on this. The climate action plan, essentially, just to sort of summarize, is it will set out everything the council is going to do in the next 10, 15, 20 years to really tackle climate change and help us reach net zero. And it will have an implementation plan. So it will say from A to Z, all the things that we're going to do that's going to really help, for example, improve our air quality, help people recycle, all of these sorts of things. And what would be great to do, and it's an evolving piece, it would be really good to think about how we can actually have, we had a version of a youth climate summit before at school, but I think it would be great to think about how we can work with the Young Futures Commission to actually do something where we really embed young people's voices into the climate action plan. But honestly, thank you all so much, and really proud to see you all.
Thank you, Councillor Cockburn. Deputy Mayor Nicholson.
Thanks, Mayor Glanville. Thank you. And I just wanted to really place on the record a great deal of gratitude and appreciation for yourselves, both past and present leadership and indeed commissions. But what I just wanted to kind of really contextualize was just pick up on number 7 in the list, which is one of those initial and original kind of objectives around including young people in the regeneration of the borough. And just put that into a little bit of a context, if I may, which is what's gone and happened in Hackney Central. And what happened was there was an extraordinary amount of very generous contributions made to shaping what Hackney Central could look like in the years ahead. And regeneration, if it's nothing else, is about picking up a baton and passing that baton on to the next generation to take forward and pick up, which Jermaine, I think, as Phil said at the beginning, is exactly what you've been doing and have done. But crucially, what it was that a very large number of young residents made their contribution as to what it is that Hackney Central could look like as a place to be, a place to enjoy, a place to socialise, and indeed a place to grow up in, work in, live in, just be part of a community. And that work directly informed the winning of £20 million worth of investment to come into Hackney Central to help bring about that change that was described by the younger generation in Hackney. And that was led because of your work and your contributions. That is a substantial investment into the future. And it's probably a future that, you know, I'm probably not really going to fully appreciate, but you will. And you can turn around and really think in an extraordinarily proud way that actually we were all part of this. You know, we set that change in motion where actually all of those boring old civil servants in the town hall actually sat down and came out and engaged and brought your ideas to the fore. So thank you. Well done. Congratulations. And looking forward to the next 5 years. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, cabinet colleagues. You've, I'm afraid, reminded me of a little bit of the origin story of this, which was the 2017 Hackney Wick through Our Eyes report that Reece and Luke and Hackney Quest, who very clearly said something wasn't going right here, and the young people's voice in one part of the borough wasn't heard, and then that led into that conversation, and it was that regeneration piece. And there's a further report about Hackney Wick that we're discussing tomorrow evening as well. But directly out of that came the build-up work on Wick Road, East Wick Way sports facility co-produced with young people, and I think also that the credibility this borough has when it takes much tougher conversations about policing and racism to the Met and the Mayor of London. And I know that they're causes that are very important to Jermaine and our Hackney Young Futures Commissioners and the Youth Parliament. Everything that we've done around trust and confidence and the new scrutiny work that has come out of the work of Hackney Account that will go live in May directly also has its origin in the Young Futures work. So there is a really celebratory moment, but that salutary moment that those challenges, those really tough things about whether young people feel the police represent and serve them and deliver the trust and confidence they're to expect, whether the health system does that, whether the school system does that, is really important, as well as some of those more celebratory moments that I've referenced, and Councillor Coburn and Deputy Mayor Bramble and Councillor Chandler and Deputy Mayor Nicholson have said. And that work goes on. Are we happy to? I think it's absolutely right, Deputy Mayor Bramble, if you've got a final remark or two.
I suppose I was just reflecting on Deputy Mayor Nicholson's point and thinking about the work that Hackney Young Futures did with Councillor Woodley and I on the child-friendly borough, and it's literally young people are just permeating through the council structures in a way that we really hadn't seen before, and not just a tick box race, coming with real critical challenge. And it really made me reflect on, as adults, we say we want to give young people the freedoms to go and shape things, but actually when it happens, we still have to adjust. And yeah, just want to commend the young people for that critical challenge, and it's fully appreciated. You know, you have made history within the borough, and your legacy continues to shape as we go forward. And a quick thank you to Ian and his team as well, to make sure that we had finance to support the structure and the changes that we needed within the council. We needed that investment, and Reece is a product of ensuring that we've got the young person authentic voice throughout this whole system. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we happy to adopt the Young Futures Commission recommendation report? Thank you. I think that deserves a clap. Thank you very much, indeed. So please do stay or go. Entirely up to you. I know it's been a long meeting. Deputy Mayor Bramwell's going to join you as well. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Item 40. We're on to markets and street trading strategy. Councillor Jana Thomas.
Thanks, Mayor Glanville. I'm very proud of Hackney street markets and the transformation since the last strategy was published 5 years ago. We know that while our markets have a core economic purpose, their social function enables them to flourish as a resource for the community that use them. Hackney Council's market are a vital ingredient in Hackney's diversity, passion, innovativeness, and independence. They are part of the very fabric of our community, commerce, and heritage of the borough. Our markets in Hackney attract in excess of 6 million shoppers every year. Our markets provide incubation hubs for more than 2,000 small and micro businesses with over 4,000 employees, the majority of which are local residents. They continue to provide access to value for money shopping across a broad range of products, with shoppers coming from across London and further afield to shop at Hackney street markets every day and to enjoy the diverse cultural and shopping offer that is available. Hackney markets are places where people can come together and belong. Through initiatives like the Alexandra Rose Food Vouchers, we support access to cheap, healthy food for those on a low income, lifting health and living standards. The local residents of Hackney can use our market to realize their dreams of starting their own business and launching it. The Market and Street Strategy 2023 to 2028 has extensive survey engagement and research that underpins this draft. Many of our markets are thriving, but some are just surviving, and we need to evolve this to ensure every commercial operation within Hackney portfolio is an incubation hub for small and micro businesses to thrive and prosper. The strategy before you, colleague, is broken down into 7 clear missions designed to deliver successful outcomes for our residents and businesses over the next 5 years. These 7 missions are safe and inclusive shopping experience, fair and transparent markets in terms of our processes, procedures, and operational practices, financial security and sustainable markets, supported enterprise and business growth, mental health and well-being of license holders through support, workshop trainings, a future for young entrepreneurs, and Hackney market going green. The report recommends 5. We've got 5 recommendations of the report, and it's for Cabinet to approve this report to go forward to consultation, to delegate or to delegate to the Director of Public Realm to make the final decision, as well as when the consultation come back, delegate responsibility to the Director of Home and Economy and myself as lead members to make those changes. Thanks very much. I commend this strategy to Cabinet, and I have the utmost confidence that it will ensure that the Hackney market and street trading portfolio will retain and enhance further its diversity, creativity in an innovative spirit. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Vajana Thomas. I just pay tribute as well to the officers that are on the call remotely for their work and again, award-winning work around our street markets. And obviously it was fantastic to be there with you, Councillor Vajana Thomas, Deputy Mayor Nicholson, and Councillor Garbett and Councillor yes, thank you for the mind, but and Councillor Palace as well when we visited Ridley Road a couple of weeks ago and saw the market flourishing. I think Councillor Garbett, you've got a question. I did just want to provide some clarification. I think on market fees. Obviously, we did take the decision to do a 1%. Below what we could have increased fees by in the formula in the budget. And I know there's ongoing work with the market service to support fruit and veg traders because of the unique challenges that they've got around inflation in terms of the stall holders. But over to you, Councillor Garbett.
Thank you, and I really welcome the introduction from Councillor Vajana Thomas about our markets and the population they serve. But sadly, my reading of this, I don't feel like the strategy in the EQIA really acknowledges some of the difficulties that some of our traders are facing, particularly those that provide vital cultural low-cost items. And I feel that the EQIA misses some of this detail and the analysis of the character of each of the markets. Obviously, they're quite different and serve kind of particular demographics. So I just was going to ask, how can you be assured that the strategy will not disproportionately impact some of our traders and residents? And I did have a second, the other question I was going to ask, which is around some of the stuff in the introduction, I'm happy to take as a written response, but I did want to ask about how you've considered the impact of moving to the Food Act will have on traders, because this is quite a big change that you're proposing in this strategy. And I just wondered how you've justified removing the protections that market and traders have had since about 1990. And this move from the Food Act will remove some of the incentives that market services currently have to act prudently and fairly. So I just wondered if there's a response on that specific bit about the Food Act.
Councillor Vajana Thomas.
Thanks very much, Councillor Garbett, for your question. I'm happy to respond to your question around the Food Act, but just going to your first question around the strategy, acknowledging the difficulties traders are facing at the moment. Just to say that the strategy is a long-term top line for the next 5 years, Councillor Garbett. It builds on the previous strategy and does not provide a narrow focus on the current issues traders and businesses are facing. Having said that, Councillor Garbett, the Council is very much alive to the post-pandemic challenges facing our traders and services, such as the continued high inflation, increasing wholesale costs, and the cost of living impact arising from extremely high energy prices. The Council has put in place plans and support mechanisms to assist traders in navigating these challenges. Example of this in practice we're seeing during the pandemic with dedicated support to help traders move their businesses online, period of rent-free trading, and the Council absorbing additional costs incurred during the pandemic and not passing this back to traders, to name a few. The same can be said, the mayor mentioned it earlier, of actions in place now with the 25% discount in terms of the inflation rise in fees and charges for Hackney Street traders, unlike most other local authorities that have applied year-on-year increases. This is the first time in 3 years that Hackney Council has increased its market fees. Also, the same can be said of actions in place now with the 25% discount given to fruit and vegetable traders over the last financial quarter of 2022-2023 to ensure that these grocery essentials remains available and affordable to Hackney families visiting our markets during a period of limited supply in the sector, even when some supermarkets have empty shelves. In terms of social and economic demographics, the strategy focuses on the support of Hackney small and micro businesses and the community they serve. Each market will require a bespoke plan to operate sustainably and achieve the aims of the strategy. As one, our market has unique identity through different traders, shoppers, profile, and this is how we are looking at our market. Our markets are regularly reviewed through on-site engagement or a paid tribute to our market staff in terms of the way they engage with traders, with businesses through visits, surveys, and looking at shopping habits, recording and observing this. When we capture all this, these are the survey, these are the details, these are the analysis we use as a council to inform decision making in our market. A successful example of this has been the work undertaken to curate grow traders number in Ridley Road Market to ensure it meets demands and shopping habits of its customers and local community. This culminated in the market winning the 2022 UK Large Market of the Year award at the National Association of British Market Authorities National in terms of its rich culture, diverse traders and customer base. That has bucked the trend in regards to economic and footfall recovery post-pandemic, and Ridley Road Market is one of the only successful 6-day-a-week market of its type in the UK, Councillor Gabbard. I recognize the value of our, we as council, we recognize the value of our market as well as the roads as entry points into job market for many residents and spaces for people, in particular young people and people from Black and global majority, to develop entrepreneurial skills. There is a strong political commitment from us. This is why we have continued to support our markets through challenging times. With the Tory government austerity measure, many local authorities have neglected their market. But here in Hackney, we continue to grow our market and support our traders. Please note, in terms of this draft strategy is going out to public consultation, and all councillors will receive a digital consultation pack to provide feedback as part of the public consultation. I hope you will comment further when you receive your digital pack. And following the consultation on the strategy, the council will consider all feedback it receives and will produce a report that will also include, you mentioned, equality impact assessment. This will include a post-consultation equality impact assessment to ensure we are properly discharging our public sector equality duties. Thanks, Councillor Gabbard. I hope that reassured you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Giles-Thomas, and obviously that through the consultation process, there's an opportunity to further feedback, as you've suggested. It is 7:25.
did you say you're going to send something to me on the Food Act bit? Or were you going to come back to that?
Yeah, I think we're all going to get it, but there may be a bit further. Are we happy to agree that the strategy? Out to consultation, obviously, with the delegations. Agreed. Item 15 is the Britannia Phase 2B residential design and build contract. As colleagues will know, all decisions relating to the Britannia scheme, whether they are procurement or overall strategic, have come through Cabinet, given the scale of the project. I note that compared to when we agreed the Britannia scheme at Cabinet in 2018, there is not a vast array of Save Britannia campaigners in front of us, although the hour is very similar in terms of the decision-making moment. I think that is a testimony to the vision that we set out when we embarked on this project, and borne out by the over 1 million visitors that have visited Britannia in 2022. The fact that both Britannia project itself has won 6 awards and is currently nominated for many more, and the same with the secondary school, is also nominated for design awards. But it is ultimately about the people that use both those buildings, Bradford Square and the broader Shoreditch Park regeneration. I'll come back to the report in front of us. I didn't want to forestall us earlier on, but I think a really vivid example of how we've included young people in co-production is in both the Britannia scheme, but also Shoreditch Park. Emma Wynn's work to make sure that that park refurbishment had young people from Shoreditch and beyond at its heart, has shaped the Muga, the outdoor gym, play areas, the design, the adventure playground, and the nearly £3 million investment that's gone into those 2 facilities. And I know that Councillor Woodley has had a sneak preview of the park. It reduced me to tears when I visited it, when you just see the scale of what is being rolled out there. It doesn't fully complete and reopen until the grass is reset in the autumn, but those play facilities are just second to none. And I look forward to visiting them with you on Friday. Returning to the paper though, all of that investment, as we've always said, is absolutely impossible without the cross subsidy of building private homes on the former Britannia Leisure Centre site. There have been numerous challenges to this moment. We have seen incredibly challenging construction cost inflation. We've seen the challenges being rejected where we wanted to build by the Secretary of State the original social housing, council housing, let's be really clear. And we gave the team late last year the challenge of coming up with a scheme that could accommodate the introduction of second staircases alongside the notable work around fire safety that they'd already done. It is a huge testament that that team, led by Ian and Hayley, who are there, but with Justin and others, multidisciplinary team, has still been able to hit the March Cabinet gate for this procurement and then the onward journey around the final redesign and then getting on site to deliver those much needed homes that help fund all of the public infrastructure that I've talked about, but also the social and affordable housing that we're delivering alongside it. I cannot thank that team that have been with us from the start for their tireless work. The public infrastructure is obviously there and being loved by the residents of Hackney and beyond. I think it's fair to say and beyond, but it's really great to see this report here with us this evening to continue the residential work. Any other questions or comments? We're happy to agree the report. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank as well Cabinet colleagues past and present for their work on the Britannia board, which is now also evolving into the King's Hall work. So thank you. Item 6, there was an exempt appendix. I assume that we don't need to consider that later on, and we're happy to just agree the two-sided part of the paper. But if people did want to, we will exempt obviously the press and public later. But we're content, I assume. Thank you. So item 16 is the general exemption provision for leasehold property insurance. I think this has been forced upon us as the paper suggests. It has been considered under general exemption rules due to the withdrawal of a previous insurer. There is an absolute requirement to ensure that appropriate cover is in place for all affected leaseholders, and therefore this decision cannot be reasonably deferred to a future cabinet meeting date. The report was published this afternoon on the council's website with the exempt appendix. We have already, Councillor Mackenzie, registered people that are councillors and leaseholders, and I know that impacts on yourself, but obviously doesn't substantially change the ability to take part in the discussion this evening. I think though, Councillor Chapman, because of your role in procurement, the report is in your name, but obviously it serves housing services leaseholders. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. As you said, I apologise that this is very short notice, but it's caused by the withdrawal of our current insurer from the market at very short notice, a problem which has affected many other authorities besides our own, and the necessity of getting a new contract in place by the 31st of March. So just basically, so apart from that, really largely as set out, we just should note that we have managed to find another insurer at very short notice, but at a considerable increased cost, which is often highly regrettable, that will be undertaking an extensive exercise to get the best value of money for our leaseholders. So we'll be working on that over the next few months, and working with other authorities to see what the best possible solution for that. But the insurance, it's worth noting that the insurance market is proving difficult generally for local authorities, including ourselves. I move the recommendations.
Thank you, and thank colleagues that have worked on this at pace.
Sorry, Mayor, could I just, it's very rare that I speak at Cabinet, but I just wanted to certainly firstly echo Councillor Chapman's comments. This is the final lot of 6 lots of insurance contracts that we've put together, and I've got to say that in my sort of time here, this has probably been the most challenging I've experienced. It's about the 4th time we've gone out to tender, so I'd really appreciate if we could put on record certainly my thanks, I know Councillor Chapman's, to Michael Pegram, our Head of Insurance, ably supported by Patrick in Legal and the team in Procurement. It has been an unprecedented journey we've been on, and we took the other 5 lots to CPIC in February, but it has been an unprecedented exercise. There's not often a team that gets spoken about, but without them, we'd really notice it if we missed them.
Indeed, Ian, took the words out of my mouth quite rightly, and Michael has obviously been at the forefront of some serious other issues that have been quite contemporary to us at the council. So it is an unsung service, but it keeps both ourselves and our residents insured and financially safe. So I'll pass on our thanks. I know he's not online at probably the hour that has eluded him, but thanks. Are we happy to not look at the exempt appendix and just agree the report?
Agreed.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Item 17 is an officer key decision for noting. I'd like to thank the governance team for introducing these to the cabinet agenda. It is extremely good governance. It is obviously a key decision being undertaken by delegated powers. I don't know if Councillor Coban, you want to make any introduction to it. I just really welcome this latest active travel intervention for the reasons set out in the paper. But Councillor Coban.
Yeah, nothing further to add to what's already been said, but obviously, again, it's a very, as you say, like from a governance perspective, we've obviously come a long way to where we are now, and obviously it's a great way in terms of how we're moving forward, but as set out, yeah.
Thank you. We're just noting as it's a delegated decision. Item 18 is the appointment of a local authority governor. Deputy Mayor Bramble has left, so I'll introduce the paper. It's Comet Nursery and a Fran Paffard. From my perspective, there are no declarations. I am sure Ms. Paffard is an excellent recommendation, but I do not know of her. In some cases, we do. Are we happy to agree that appointment and obviously pass on our congratulations, as we always do at this moment, to all those that serve on governing bodies in the borough? Agreed. There are no new items of unrestricted urgent business. We don't need to exclude the press and public because we've dealt with those items under the main agendas. There are no other exempt urgent items. Thank you very much, colleagues, for bearing with us through the last 90 minutes, but we've covered a lot of ground and I think some really important decisions as well as involving residents in our democracy. The next meeting is on the 24th of April at 6 p.m. Thanks all.